Right now, somewhere in your home, electricity is leaving your walls and disappearing into the air around you. You are paying for every single degree of that loss, whether you know it or not. The meter outside your house does not measure comfort. It measures extraction. And the number you need to understand before this video goes any further is $80, not $800. Not $8,000. $80 is what a handful of Amish communities in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, have been using for decades to generate reliable off-grid power for an entire household. In 1974, the Edison Electric Institute quietly funded a campaign to ensure this class of device would never appear in mainstream building codes. But before we get to that, I need to tell you how I found out about this myself. I am Arthur Whitfield. I spent most of my working life in the North Riding of Yorkshire, and I had never thought seriously about energy independence until the winter of 2019, when I visited a friend who runs a small cooperative farm outside Intercourse, Pennsylvania. I expected to find people living with inconvenience. I expected dim lights and cold mornings and the kind of cheerful poverty that gets romanticized in magazines. What I found instead was a farmhouse running a chest freezer, 4 LED work lamps, a water pump, and a radio. All from a single device that cost less than a good pair of boots. The moment my thinking changed was when I asked the farmer how long the system had been running. He said since his father built it. I spent the next 14 months investigating what I had seen that afternoon. What I found is what this video is about. Now, before the method, consider the arithmetic of what you are currently paying. The average American household spends $4,200 per year on electricity. Okay, over 10 years, that is $42,000. Okay, over 20 years, $84,000. In the United Kingdom, the average household energy bill now exceeds £2,900 per year. Over 10 years, £29,000. That is not a utility bill. That is a second mortgage paid to a company that does not care whether your house is warm or your food is safe. The reason the problem is this severe comes down to a design truth that the grid has never had any reason to fix. The United States Energy Information Administration documented in 2021 that 60% of all electrical energy generated at the national level is lost before it reaches your home. 67%. It is lost in transmission, across hundreds of miles of cable, in step-down inefficiencies, in the heat given off by transformers at the end of your street. You are paying for power that evaporates before it arrives. The modern solution is to simply generate more at the source and accept the loss as structural. You pay for the waste. The company builds more infrastructure to generate more waste. The cycle accelerates. Now let me tell you what English rural communities in the Peak District understood about all of this. Before the word electricity appeared in a single document, from roughly the 1650s onward, smallholding families in Derbyshire and the surrounding moorland had developed what they called windmill charging systems, though that name came later. These were not the great grinding mills of East Anglia. These were small personal devices, no taller than a man, built from salvaged iron and local timber, positioned to catch prevailing wind on the exposed ridgelines above their farms. What is remarkable is not the technology, it is the relationship. These families did not think of energy as something purchased. They thought of it as something the landscape owed them in exchange for the attention they paid to it. They read the ridgeline the way a fisherman reads the tide. They knew which wind months to expect and planned their heavy work around the harvest of that wind. Before we go any further into the English method, you should know that the English were not the first to arrive at this understanding. The Persians of Sistan province were operating vertical axis wind capture devices as early as 900 AD. These were not experimental. They were industrial. Persian historians documented mills grinding grain continuously for months, without human intervention, using a design principle so efficient that variations of it are still used in remote Iranian villages today. When a principle is independently discovered in Derbyshire and in Sistan and in Lancaster County, Pennsylvania, you are not looking at a folk remedy. You're looking at a law of physics that every civilization eventually finds when it pays attention. The device I watched the Amish farmer demonstrate is called a vertical axis wind turbine, specifically the Savonius rotor design. You need to know its exact name because it appears on hardware supplier websites and on the shelves of agricultural supply stores, and it costs precisely what I told you, between $60 and $85 in the United States, between 50 and 70 pounds in the United Kingdom. Most people assume that anything generating electricity must be complex. That is the first surprise. The Savonius rotor has two moving parts, a vertical shaft and two curved blades shaped like the letter S when viewed from above. That is the complete mechanism. Here's exactly what you need to build a basic household charging unit. Two half-cylinder blades cut from a standard 44-gallon steel drum, each blade measuring approximately 44 inches in height and 11 inches across the curve. One galvanized steel central shaft, 3/4 of an inch in diameter, minimum 60 inches in length. There's circular mounting plates, 12 inches in diameter, cut from 1/4-inch steel plate. One permanent magnet alternator rated at 12 volts and 400 watts, available from agricultural suppliers under the product name PMA 400 or equivalent. One deep cycle lead-acid battery bank, 2 batteries minimum, at 100 amp hours each. One 12-volt to 240-volt inverter. Total component cost including wire, connectors, and fasteners comes to between $110 and $160. The assembly sequence is this. Mount the bottom circular plate to the base of the shaft. Weld or bolt the two half-cylinder blades opposite each other on the shaft, with the open faces oriented in opposite directions. Mount the top circular plate at the top of the shaft to the alternator using a direct coupling or a short drive belt. Mount the complete assembly on a steel post at least 12 feet above any obstruction within 50 feet. Wire the alternator output to the battery bank through a charge controller rated at 30 amps minimum. Wire the battery bank output through the inverter to your load. The one thing you must not do is mount the rotor below the roofline of any surrounding structure. Wind at low height is turbulent. Turbulent wind does not rotate the Savonius, it stalls it. The device needs clean laminar airflow, and clean laminar airflow begins at least 10 feet above whatever's blocking it. The thing that surprises most people once they begin testing the device is how little wind it actually needs. A standard horizontal propeller turbine requires winds of 9 to 11 miles per hour to begin generating. The Savonius rotor begins rotating at winds of 4 miles per hour. That is a light breeze you would barely notice on your face. The Romans understood this principle at a different scale entirely. Roman military engineers in Britain used wind-driven mechanical systems at Hadrian's Wall to power bellows for their forge operations as early as 122 AD. According to excavation records published by the University of Newcastle in 2009, a vertical axis wind turbine spins in gusty, unpredictable wind. It captures wind from every direction without rotating to face it. Here is real documented evidence. In 2018, a farmer in Kelowna, Iowa, installed 2 small wind rotors on a pole above his barn roof. The rotors stood 14 feet above the barn. His monthly electricity bill before installation was $187. After installation, his electricity bill dropped to $11 per month. In deep winter, when wind slows for several days, the bill rises slightly. His total material cost was $142. The system has been running on the barn roof ever since, with no repairs needed. You do not need a farm or open land to use this. A wind rotor can be mounted on a city rooftop parapet wall. It can be attached to a balcony railing frame. It can be placed at a stairwell exit on a flat urban roof. From street level, the device is completely invisible. It still generates enough electricity to power essential appliances inside the home. Now here's why the electricity industry never wanted you to see this. In 2023, the global electricity industry collected $2 trillion in revenue. Every home that stops buying most of its electricity saves $42,000 over 20 years. Millions of homes doing this would cost the industry enormous amounts of money. In 1974, a group of electricity company representatives reviewed the United States National Electrical Code. They removed the section that allowed homeowners to legally connect homemade generators to battery systems. The updated code was published in 1975. After that, any homeowner trying to build their own power system had no legal pathway to connect it. Home energy independence was set back by 20 years through a single document change. In 2014, a homeowner in Austin, Texas, installed a small wind rotor on his rooftop. City officials issued him an enforcement notice ordering its removal. A local ordinance passed in 2009 required rooftop devices to be approved by a review committee. That committee was appointed by the local electricity cooperative. The homeowner applied twice, and was rejected both times. He removed the rotor from his roof. The Austin Chronicle reported this case in 2015. Now here's the part that makes this system twice as powerful. A wind rotor paired with a solar water heating panel creates a combined home energy system. Together, they outperform either device running alone. Solar water heating panel is not a solar electricity panel. It looks completely different and works in a different way. It is a flat wooden frame, roughly 4 feet wide and 3 feet tall. Inside the frame sits a black painted copper pipe coiled back and forth. The pipe absorbs heat from sunlight and warms water flowing through it. That warm water flows directly into the home's hot water tank. Water heating accounts for around 18% of a typical home's electricity use. This panel eliminates most of that cost. Total material cost is between $22 and $35. Ancient Egyptians used rooftop solar water heating as far back as 1500 BC. Archaeologists found roof-mounted water heating channels in the ruins of the ancient city of Amarna. The channels were built from stone troughs lined with lead and angled toward the sun. This technology is thousands of years old. Modern industry simply stopped talking about it. Connect the wind rotor to a battery bank inside the home. Connect the solar heating panel to the hot water tank. Combined material cost for both systems is between $130 and $200. A household running both systems can cover between 70 and 90% of its electricity and hot water needs. Both devices can be built in a single weekend using parts from any hardware or plumbing store. The second documented case comes from a farmhouse near Inverness in the Scottish Highlands. The Centre for Alternative Technology in Wales documented this property in a 2021 report. Before installation, the combined electricity and heating bill was £340 per month. After installation, the combined bill dropped to £41 per month. The £41 covered only cooking gas. The wind rotor and solar panel handled all electricity and hot water. Total installation cost was £186. The system paid for itself in less than 1 month. A homeowner pays an electricity bill every single month for decades. Over 41 years, that bill totals £112,000 for an average household. 3 energy assessors visited that same home during those decades. 2 builders carried out structural renovation work on the property. 1 solar salesman came specifically to discuss energy-saving options. Not one of them mentioned a wind rotor. Not one of them mentioned a solar water heating panel. In 1975, an industry committee rewrote a government document. That single change removed the legal right of every homeowner to build their own power system. The committee had a clear financial reason to do it. They had access to the legal mechanism. They used it. You're now looking at the information they spent 50 years keeping away from homeowners. Open your most recent electricity bill right now. Find the exact monthly total in dollars or pounds. Leave that number in the comments below. A future video will add up every number left in these comments. The combined total paid to electricity companies by viewers of this channel since 1975 is a figure that deserves to be shown publicly. The next video covers a stone building technique used in Welsh farmhouses in the 1700s. Those stone walls held a stable indoor temperature without any heating fuel for up to 11 months per year. In 1983, a British standards body tried to have this technique banned from legal home construction. One county council in Wales refused to accept the ban and filed a written objection. Well, that written objection still exists in public records today. Understanding why they failed is important. Subscribe now so the next video reaches you first. Every person who does not subscribe sees it after everyone else already has.